Let's talk about something nobody wants to hear. Cutting people off is not peace. Blocking someone is not peace. Going silent is not peace. Becoming emotionally unavailable is not peace. Those things might feel like peace, but what you are actually feeling is relief. And relief and peace are not the same thing. Relief disappears when a new person triggers you the same way. Peace stays, regardless of who walks into the room. Psychology makes a clear distinction here. Relief is external. It depends on removing something. Peace is internal. It depends on building something. And most people are so focused on who to remove that they never build anything at all. So today, 6 psychology-backed ways to build real peace. Not by cutting people off, but by changing your relationship with access, energy, and yourself. 1. Stop over-explaining your decisions. Highly self-aware people fall into this trap constantly. You cancel plans and write a paragraph justifying it. You set a limit and immediately defend it. You say no, and then spend 20 minutes making sure everyone understands why. Psychologists call this compulsive justification. And underneath it is always the same root. You need the other person to approve of your boundary before you feel safe having it. But that means your boundary is actually controlled by them. Real boundaries do not require permission. Instead of, "I'm so sorry I can't come. I've just been really overwhelmed and I need some time to recharge and I hope you understand," say, "I won't be able to make it." Full stop. No guilt. No story. The discomfort you feel after saying that is not a sign you did something wrong. It is a sign you are still learning that your decisions belong to you. 2. Use the pause as a weapon. Not every message deserves an immediate reply. Not every situation needs your instant reaction. When you respond immediately, you react emotionally. When you pause, you respond intentionally. Psychologists call this the stimulus-response gap. Viktor Frankl described it as the space where human freedom lives. In that space, you are not controlled by what just happened. You choose your response from a grounded place. Taking 3 hours to reply is not rude. Taking a day to think before responding to conflict is not avoidance. It is emotional regulation. Silence is not weakness. It is the clearest form of control available to you. 3. Use soft filters, not hard walls. Here is the real difference between boundaries and cutting people off. Cutting people off is binary. They are in or they are out. Boundaries are adjustable. They control the level of access, not presence. Psychologists call this graduated disclosure. Selective vulnerability. You stop sharing personal information with someone who gossips. You limit how long you engage with someone who drains you. You choose the setting and timing of difficult conversations. You are still kind. You are still present. But you are no longer fully exposed. Most relationships do not need to end. They need to be restructured. And restructuring requires far more skill than simply walking away. 4. Stop treating other people's behavior as information about you. This one shift changes everything. When someone is cold, dismissive, critical, or difficult, your brain immediately asks, "What does this mean about me?" But psychology shows that most human behavior is a projection of internal state, not a verdict on the person receiving it. Someone snapping at you is usually expressing their own dysregulation. Someone being distant is usually managing their own anxiety. Someone being critical is usually protecting their own insecurity. The psychological term is attribution error, the tendency to take personally what was never actually about you. The moment you stop absorbing other people's emotional weather as your own forecast, you remove an enormous amount of unnecessary suffering. That is not indifference. That is clarity. 5. Track how people leave you feeling, not how they make you feel in the moment. You can spend 1 hour with a certain person and feel completely hollowed out. You can spend 10 minutes alone in silence and feel completely restored. The difference is not time. It is what the interaction cost you. Here is what most people miss. You cannot accurately measure that cost while it is happening. You measure it after. So start paying attention to how you feel 30 minutes after a conversation ends. Not during it. After. Are you lighter or heavier? Clearer or more confused? More like yourself or less? That data is more honest than any analysis you can do at the moment. And once the pattern becomes clear, your choices naturally begin to change. Without force. Without drama. Just clarity. 6. Expect resistance when you start changing. This is the one most people are not prepared for. When you stop over-explaining, some people will call you cold. When you start pausing before responding, some people will call you distant. When you restructure access, some people will call you difficult. This is predictable. Psychologists call it changeback pressure, the social force that pushes you back toward familiar behavior. Because your old patterns were more convenient for others. The version of you with no limits was easier to manage, easier to access, easier to use. When you become harder to use, some people will frame that as a personality problem. It is not. It is growth. And growth always changes dynamics. That is how you know it is working. Here is what all 6 of these have in common. None of them require you to disappear. None of them require you to become cold. None of them require you to cut anyone off. They require you to build something internally that most people never build. The capacity to be present without being consumed. Available without being unlimited. Connected without being controlled. That is not isolation. That is what real peace actually looks like. If this shifted something for you, subscribe. Not for content. For a different way of thinking about how you move through the world.